Hey YouTube, welcome back. Today I'm going to go through what is probably one of the most common questions within the fitness industry, and that is how to get abs. Okay, this has to be one of probably the most popular goals people have. This idea, this picture of having abs. Okay, I'm going to walk you through how to simply get there, what is needed done, the simple theory behind it. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of some of the BS that you'll see in the fitness industry of people telling you that you need to do cardio or train abs 3 times a week or eat this, that, whatever it might be. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just going to tell you simply how this is done. Don't forget, if you do enjoy the video, please drop a like, comment, and please, if you haven't already, do subscribe. Okay, so let's break this down really simply. To have abs, that requires you to be very lean. Okay, obviously it's very individual dependent. You know, if people have more developed abs, then you're probably going to be able to see them, you know, without being necessarily as lean as maybe someone else. So there's different levels of leanness here we're talking about. Again, like I said, everyone's different, but you're going to have to be pretty lean in general to see visible abs. Again, depends on your goal. You might not want to be absolutely shredded to the bone, so you might not need to be that lean, but you're going to have to be relatively lean. What do you have to do to get relatively lean? You have to drop body fat. You have to be in a fat loss phase. Okay? First, very simple thing we need to remember. Okay, so we know we're going to have to go through a fat loss phase. We need to drop body fat to get lean, to see visible abs. What do we need to do to be in a fat loss phase? We need to be in a calorie deficit. Okay? So a calorie deficit is taking in less calories than you are expending. Okay? We need to do that and do that consistently over time to continue to drop body fat to then get lean enough to see abs. Now, this is where you'll get a lot of BS. You get a lot of people telling you need to do this and that to create this calorie deficit. Okay, and people like to confuse this part of creating a calorie deficit to then make getting abs, seeing visible abs, try and make that complicated. Okay, so what I mean by that is people will say, oh, you have to do cardio to see abs, or you have to train abs 3 times a week to see abs, or you have to cut out this from your diet to see abs. And all they're basically saying is these are potential ways to create a deficit and to stay in a deficit over time. Okay, you know, people say, like I said, people say you need to do cardio to see abs. You don't, but doing cardio might help you increase output and therefore help create this deficit. People will say you need to cut out this food item to see abs. You don't. But we know that, you know, if you cut out a food item, which probably isn't the best option anyway, that's a different story, but if you do cut out a food item, that's going to reduce calories and therefore might help you create this deficit. You know, people saying you have to train abs 3 times a week. You don't. But training 3 times a week is probably going to help increase output and therefore put you in a calorie deficit. So don't get confused by people saying you have to do this or that in particular to see abs. You don't have to do something in particular to see abs other than create a calorie deficit by whichever means works best for you and you can sustain and do consistently long term or long enough to become lean enough to see abs. That's it. Now, there's only 3 things I would advise. And again, this isn't me telling you have to do this or that to see abs. This is just me saying what I would advise to probably get the outcome you're looking for and to make it maybe a little bit easier for you. One of those things is focusing on adherence. Okay, so like I said, you've got to make sure whatever you're doing in terms of creating a calorie deficit, you can stick to long term and long enough to get the results you're after. So if you like doing cardio, include cardio. If you like doing weight training, include weight training. If you like a particular food, keep it within your diet as long as it's not going to impact you know, the amount of calories you're having in the sense of bringing you out of a calorie deficit. Okay? If you don't like a certain food, then remove that from your diet. Whatever's going to help you stick to this program, to this diet that you've created in terms of creating a calorie deficit, then do that because it's going to help adherence. Number 2, protein intake. So when we're looking at, you know, going through a fat loss phase, we want to ideally try and keep hold of the muscle mass that we have, okay? Because fat loss is that, trying to drop body fat, and therefore we want to maintain and retain the muscle mass that we have. Because if we don't focus on maintaining and retaining the muscle mass we have, then we have the potential to lose muscle mass through this calorie deficit, which we don't want to do, especially if you're going down this route of, looking for a particular look, which if we're looking for visible abs is potentially what we're after. So protein intake needs to be adequate. Alongside, weight training would then be very beneficial because again, weight training is great for maintaining and retaining the muscle mass you have, and potentially, depending on numerous factors which we won't get into now, but potentially even adding muscle mass, even though you're in a deficit. So they're the three things I would advise alongside creating this fat loss and going for visible abs, if that's what your goal is. But just remember, creating the calorie deficit and maintaining that is the main thing that is going to get you to the point of seeing abs, just sustaining it, and adherence is key for that. Now, before I finish, I just want to quickly make one last note. Something that you're not told within the fitness industry in terms of getting abs. You have to get very lean, relatively lean, to get abs, which I've spoken about. Now, getting to that point is going to be quite difficult, right? You're going to have times of probably likely being very hungry, being tired, because you're getting that lean. What people don't talk about is then trying to sustain that, and whether or not that is healthy, okay? Just remember, when you get down to that sort of level of leanness, trying to sustain that is going to be maybe not just as hard as getting there, but it is going to be hard to sustain it, okay? You're going to have to be very controlled in what you do day to day. You're going to have to be very controlled in what your intake is, what your expenditure is. This energy balance is going to have to be very controlled. And that isn't for everyone. You have to have this expectancy of what life's going to be like if you want to maintain that condition that you've now got. And it's difficult. So just remember that, okay? It's not as easy as getting abs and just sustaining them forever. It's not as easy as that, unless you're willing to do what is required, which is a lot of control over various variables. So just remember that, because that's not spoken about a lot, okay? So if you want to go for visible abs, fantastic, go for it. But just remember that sustaining that, if that's your long-term goal, is maybe not as easy as you think. Hopefully this has helped, hopefully this has made sense, Just try to simplify it for you, because if you look around the internet, it can get very confusing and very complicated when it really isn't necessary. Any questions, fire them my way. If you need any more help, advice, again, let me know. Take care and see you later.